Good morning. I hope you're doing well. I am doing quite well. I'm pretty happy with how things have gone this week. There's been a lot of CAD, which is good. I like CAD. CAD is nice. um, yeah, I'm excited to show you all what I've been doing. It's come along quite nicely, I think. And yeah, there's a couple big things that I'm pretty that feel quite important for the project as a whole. And yeah, it's good. I'm happy with how things are going. So let's get straight into it. Here we can see I've put Jugglebot into Onshape, and now the entirety of Jugglebot is here. And there's a link in the description if you want to check out this model. You should be able to open this up and see pretty much exactly the same thing that I can see here. You'll have a slightly different UI, but you'll be able to see the model, and I believe you can play around with it and everything like that. And yeah, so you can do whatever you want with that. In a little bit, I'm going to go through the structure of how I've laid things out here so that you can kind of like move around the model and find where everything is. A big part of what I was doing this week is just like familiarizing myself with Onshape because I haven't used it too much. This is by far the largest project that I have done in Onshape. Everything else has just been like a quick like modeling, just like a small like this sort of like thing to be printed or whatever. This is the only multi-part model I believe that I've made, and it has many parts. Actually, this is one thing that I'm curious about. If anyone knows how to have Onshape tell you how many individual parts are inside an assembly, I would love to know. I've been pretty happy with how the like attachment of fasteners works in Onshape. So for example, in here I've got all of these bolts that are like attaching everything to the aluminium extrusion, and this is really easy to do in Onshape. I never used to do this in SolidWorks because it's always a bit too much of a pain in the butt, and I don't know, it didn't really feel necessary, but it is always like the more that you include in the model, the better result you will get at the end, because you realize, actually things don't really fit in that sort of tolerance because you didn't model them and you can't see that it doesn't fit. Yeah, so I've been going through and adding a lot of the fasteners in just because it's so quick and easy to do. But I've got no idea how many parts are in here. So I've got this big assembly, and this says 8 instances up the top. Let me increase my text size a bit so you can see. It says I've got 8 instances, but these are just like from what I can tell, these are like the assembly. So like this whole assembly is one instance, and each leg is one instance. But of course, each of those things contains many parts. So I'm very curious to know. I tried looking this up, but I couldn't find out how to do this. But yeah, I would love to know how many parts are in here. And I want to go through and add the fasteners into the legs, because these I just imported step files from SolidWorks. And I want to go through and add the fasteners into these, because I'm so curious to know just how many things are in Jugglebot. My guess is over 1,000, but I'm not sure, and I would love to know. Anyway, yeah, so I don't really know where to start. There's lots of things here. I guess I'll start with the platform design. So this is the biggest new thing that is different, is, yeah, the structure of this. And last week I was entertaining a slightly different design, and I ended up going with this design, which is, you may feel familiar because it's pretty much exactly what John suggested a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, I decided this is definitely a lot more simple than what I was planning on doing with all the strings and having to tension everything up. And yeah, I think it's a good design. And like, it's, yeah, a lot more simple. It should be very quick and easy to put together, and yeah, should be stiff enough. So I think it will be nice. One thing you'll notice is that I've offset this a little bit so that it's not perfectly centered in the middle. There were 2 main reasons for that. One is because, let me hide this. As Jugglebot moves around, this is one thing that I'll comment. I'll bring that up in a sec. But as Jugglebot moves around, it's kind of hard to show right now, but the bottom part of this, like this bit that sticks down, can sometimes land in positions where it will hit one of the legs. And yeah, I basically just I wanted to shift it all up just to make that less likely to happen, so that it's a little bit more out of the way. And the second reason is because we want the O drive and like the motor to be as close to in the middle as we can. this is going to operate on the same principle as what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks, which is a capstan drive. So you can see this black string here it attaches onto the hand with a magical, it just goes straight through. In real life, it's of course got loops that will loop into here. The string goes up, over pulleys on the top, down through this nice little hole. It should be enough space for it. Around this spool a couple times, and then down the other side, and basically the same thing. Through a little hole, around these pulleys, and then back up to the hand. And we want the motor that's driving this to be as close to in the middle as we can. If it's off a little bit, that's probably fine. And especially because I've got the string running through these channels, that's honestly probably fine. But the further away from the middle it goes, the less symmetric it will be, and the more likely it will be that the string will like not pull evenly and will also drift with respect to like this hole as the like actuator moves up and down. So if the motor was like all the way up here, as the string spools and unspools from the spool, it's going to be moving like side to side. And I think if the hand motor is up towards the top a bit more, it's going to make it more likely to like hit the sides of this hole and just cause a nuisance. Basically, I want the hand motor to be in the middle, and if it was straight in the middle, and if this whole thing was centered with respect to the frame, then the motor hits these carbon fiber rods, and that's no good. But to be honest, the main reason is because I don't want the bottom part here to be hitting the legs, which it still can do as it is right now. It's kind of hard to show this, but yeah, it's less likely, especially with the angles and stuff that we'll be actually using on Jugglebot. It's a lot less likely that this will hit. I am planning to go through a process. I think once I've got this built, I'll definitely be like in the model playing around with seeing what angles and everything make the bottom hit the legs. But for me, there's no trial like the real thing. So I think once this is built, I'll like play around with the physical thing and like move it around and see where it hits, because I want to make absolutely sure that I have a fairly good understanding of where those limits are, so that I can set in the code where those limits are and then make sure that the robot doesn't hit them. Because that would be bad if this hit one of the legs at speed. It can get in some really wacky situations where it could get quite a lot of mechanical advantage, and yeah, that wouldn't be great. So a couple other things. This frame, actually, let me show you the layout of the model first. So if you're watching this live with me, you can flick through and open the models up yourself. So I've opened this up in a different account. I don't understand how people use Onshape without the dark mode thing. It's unbelievable. I cannot stand this. I've been looking at this for about 5 seconds and it is too bright. For anyone wondering, I use this, you can see over here, this Onshape dark mode Chrome extension. It's a free 1 week trial, and then after that it was like $3 for life. And I'm like, I use CAD. Like this week I've probably spent over 30 hours in CAD. That is worth $3 to me for eternity. So I paid for it. I know there are other ways to get Onshape in dark mode, but Onshape doesn't have a default dark mode, why? But anyway, yeah. So this is what you should be seeing if you have opened this up from the link in the description. And so I've got everything in, all that is here is just one assembly, and all of these other parts and assemblies that have been pulled into this assembly are their own thing. And if you right click on them, then you can go open linked document. So I middle clicked that to open in a new tab. And eventually that opens up. And so we can see, for example, I just opened the platform. And so we can see the platform that I was just looking at then. Inside the platform here, we have the frame parts are in a tab, and you can see all of those parts in here and play around with them if you want to. And then we've also got just the hand assembly itself. So if you want to build your own Jugglebot, this is really like, this is the heart of Jugglebot right now. If you have this and some way to move this around, you're good. But we'll obviously explore all of these different options as time goes on. But for now, this is just in here. And then all of the parts for this assembly are in their own folder over here. So you can look at, I don't know, the end pulley mounts if you're interested. And yeah, you can see, so if you go over here to the versions, you can see everything that I've done since the dawn of this document. which is honestly a little bit creepy in my opinion. I feel like I'm being like, I don't know. I feel like this feels sort of similar to like, I imagine what people would feel like working in like an office with like someone like watching over them all the time, or like maybe watching over them. It's like all my keystrokes are being logged, and I don't know, it feels weird. But anyway, yeah, that's all in here. And yeah, so the same thing for the legs. You can open the legs up and the base. The legs and the base are pretty boring though. They're basically just imports. And so yeah, there's not much going on in there. The platform is the only thing that's been built up from the ground up in Onshape. Yeah, okay, so back to nice dark mode. Thank you. I'm actually going to minimize that. The light is so bright. So, yes, the next thing with this platform is that all of these struts are designed to all meet at the same point. So I have in the platform frame parts, we can see there is a skeleton model, and this model contains everything that's driving like the structure of the frame itself. So we've got one main sketch that shows the top view. So we've got the carbon fiber, sorry, the aluminium extrusion here. We've got the ball here. I have these offset so that the ball is always in the center. This is something that I feel is fairly important. I want the ball to be right in the middle. So if we go, how can I bring this to the origin? Yep. If we have like a top view here, the ball is straight in the middle. And I really want this to be the case because for me, symmetry, as anyone who's been following this project for any amount of time will know, symmetry is very important. And I want Jugglebot to be agnostic to which direction the ball is coming from. The fact that this sticks out above the top of the ball does frustrate me a little bit. This is something that I was trying to avoid in my previous designs because this means that potentially, if things aren't lined up properly, then when the ball is currently stuck in the hand, so it can't actually come out. But if the ball is coming in at a slightly different angle than what we're expecting, it might hit this. It shouldn't if it's coming from like this direction, whereas if it's coming from this direction, that won't happen. Yeah, that kind of frustrates me a little bit, but hopefully, I mean, we'll see once it's actually throwing whether or not this is a problem. That shouldn't be a problem because this should be lining up perfectly with where the ball is coming anyway. So this being here shouldn't make a difference, but we'll see. But in any event, yeah, the ball is directly in the middle. And this is set up with a variable table, and I can adjust things like the platform radius and the offset of the hand from the 2020 extrusion. I don't want to change this right now because I tried it last night and most of these things can be changed a little bit without many of the features breaking. But obviously if you change them too much, then a lot of these features, like especially the fillets and like delete face and that sort of thing, these tend to be a little bit less stable to the geometry changing too much. So if we change these too much, then we'll have to go back and fix the features. But if you make a copy of this document yourself, then you can play around with changing these however you want. Side note on here, last week I was, complaining about the fact that when I updated some of these variables, I would have to go in and update the contexts of those features. So like these arrows here are showing that there's a context, and I'd have to go in and update context for every single one. I realized there's a different way to do what I was trying to do, which is that if you have a variable studio in an assembly, that variable studio is visible to all part studios in the same document. So if I have a variable here, and if I have a part over here, I can access those variables. So if I start a new sketch on here, come on. So if I do this, and I want this dimension to be keyed to one of those variables, I have access to all these variables. So these are the ones that were set in the assembly, in like the main assembly as well. So yeah, that is how I should have done what I was trying to do last week. You can't do that for everything. Like if you're trying to key geometry to other geometry, then that doesn't work. And then you do have to use the contexts, but it's good for equations and variables. Yeah. Yes, so back to the skeleton. All of these, I've been, I don't know, exploring the opportunities that come up with Onshape being hosted in the browser. Like you can open these up in different tabs, and then I've got a mouse that has a bunch of different like hotkeys on it. And so opening things in different tabs and then just flicking through the tabs with my mouse is so good. Just being able to like make a change here, come back to the assembly, see how it's changed, go back to the thing, like it's wonderful. Like for example, if I realize, oh, actually, hang on, I want this to be like further away, I want that spacing to be larger, then I can come back and whoop, there we go. Instantly larger. And then fixed. It's really good. Yeah, so all of these carbon fiber struts meet in a point, which should act to keep them all only in tension and compression. There should be zero bending here. All of the forces should be just going perfectly collinear along all of these struts, which will be great because these rods that I'm using are not the strongest. They are only 6mm pulled-rooted carbon fiber rods. The only reason I'm using these and not the larger 8mm tubes that I've been using everywhere else is because I don't have enough of these 8mm ones, and I only have enough scraps of the 6mm one to make this platform. I could also use wood, and I've bought a bunch of dowel and some spray paint to make it black because it's got to match the color scheme. But the wood is just so much bigger, and yeah, I like the thinness of all of this. I just hope that it's strong enough. We'll see. Yeah, so all of these carbon fiber rods meeting in a point is great, except it made it really, really tricky to model these nodes. These are some of the weirdest parts that I have modeled, I think. Let me open one of them up. What do we want? Let's do the front one. Yeah, if you control click on a tab, it will open it in a new tab as well, which is handy. So yeah, these have a lot going on. So we need to get the carbon fiber tubes in, and so that they're all supported. And to do this, I have these sketches in the assembly, and I basically made the part just as like a default block, imported it into the assembly, fixed it in its spot on this little point here, and then edited that part in the context of the assembly, and then I could pull in all of the important sketches. So I've got like these lines are all pulled in from this governing main sketch. And that way I can see exactly where like this central line is. I can see where the shoulder bolt for the leg joint needs to go. And I can see where the carbon fiber tube is going to be. Or rod, rather. Yeah, getting this all to fit was very odd. And these are some strange parts. I'm kind of skeptical to know... Oh, I'm kind of skeptical about how easy some of these will be to print. I obviously am intending on them being printed like in that orientation. This one, for example, should be fine. None of these overhangs are too steep, but some of them, I think, especially, yeah, this one, that overhang there, I think I might need to support that a bit, but we'll see. Yeah, very weird parts. I had a lot of deliberation about how to do these properly because there was just too much going on in one area, but I think this should work. This is actually something that kind of frustrates me about Onshape, is that if you go make transparent, it doesn't show you the internal edges of the thing. So I can't see like, okay, cool, this rod goes into the part, but like how does it actually meet with the hole that I've made in the part? Whereas I've also got SolidWorks open now. If we go into SolidWorks, we can say make this part, where is it? It's been too long. Change transparency. I can see exactly all of the internal edges. So here I can see the hole that I've cut out for this shoulder bolt, and I can see that there's a bit of an offset between the shoulder bolt and the hole, and it should fit in quite nicely. And same here, I can see this offset. That is so handy, and I don't know how to do this, or if it is even possible to do that in Onshape. That's, yeah, kind of frustrating. So it makes it really hard to see how far these fit. You can do section views, and section views have been really helpful with making sure that everything fits nicely, but that's so much more tedious, having to go through and section view everything. But it does work, I guess. Yes, John is on it. He's just suggesting section views. Yes, I love them. They're very handy, but it's not as, I don't know, it's not as fast. And you can't see multiple at once. Like this has 4 things, well, actually 6 things going in and out of it, including the shoulder bolts. And yeah, checking all of them takes so much longer than just going make transparent. But yeah, it does work. This is one thing that I will note about Onshape though, is that they are always making improvements. And for example, since I have been using it, which has been like a month, they've added in the feature of changing the sketch colors. That wasn't a thing when I started, and it now is. And I think every 3 weeks they have like a new batch of updates. And some of them, like the sketch colors, for me, that's a pretty important one. Yeah, some of them are pretty good. So they're always improving, which is very, very good to see. Yeah. What else? I've got so many things. Yeah. Mounting, previously I was mounting everything with just M3 bolts, but as I was checking out John's model, I noticed that he was using M5 bolts for a lot of things, and I think that's probably a good idea. If we can probably get a bit more of a bite out of those, and they should be gripping things a lot better. I've also changed this part now to this is just one solid piece. So if I open this, see, middle click there doesn't open any new tab. That's weird. But I can do this. Yeah, this is all one piece now. Previously, I had this as multiple parts, but I think one is all that it really needs to be. I've got the teensy mount over here, which if it looks like it was just chucked on as an afterthought, it was, because I forgot about it. But it fits magically. It's amazing that it fits there pretty well without too much effort of like finagling that on. So that, yeah, and that's pretty much in the identical places it is on the current one, which is good because it means that I can use the same cables that I've made to connect everything up, which I'm very, very happy with. We've also got, as you will see, this Inclinometer, which is a sensor that measures, as you might expect, inclination, and they are very, very precise. So I've got in here, I've got the model. And something that's very cool about Onshape that I am a big, big fan of is that you can upload PDFs and like any arbitrary file. So with this file that I've got, where I've got the model, I also have the data sheet and the spec sheet for the PCB. So it's very handy to just be able to like store this information here. And then if I'm like, oh, what was that? Like, what's the sensitivity of the sensor in this range or whatever? I can just open up this, the data sheet, and it's right there. I don't have to Google anything. It's very handy. But yeah, this inclinometer can measure, I can't remember exactly what its precision is, but it's something like 0.001 degrees within 10 plus or minus 10 degrees. So the plan is with this mounted on here, and I'll talk about exactly the mounting in a sec, but the plan is that with this mounted, we should be able to position the platform into a given spot and then basically like tear the robot, because I don't expect, I'm fairly sure that the floor is not flat here. Maybe it's just me being a bit skeptical, but in any event, like between the floor and the legs being slightly wrong lengths, the platform is not flat when it should be flat. And that's obviously a problem if we're going to be throwing balls, because we need to be pretty damn sure that we are at the angle that we want to be at. Otherwise the ball's going to go in the wrong direction. So the plan with this inclinometer, which you'll note only is really meant to be used in static positions. It's not really supposed to be used while things are moving around, because it's very sensitive to accelerations. And if there's any other accelerations going on other than just gravity, then it will get a bit confused. And it will also only updates at 10 Hertz. So that's not really enough to use for like rapid dynamic adjustments. But the idea is that we can put it in a bunch of different positions and basically tear the robot to make it so that flat is actually genuinely flat. And then just have some offset where if we want to move to 15 degrees, then if we just tell the robot blindly move to 15 degrees, it might be like 15.2, but we'll have some 0.2 degree offset, and that will straighten everything up. Yes. I have mounted it here because I was thinking of mounting, we want it to be on this aluminium extrusion. This is as close to the hand as we can possibly get without actually being on the hand itself. And that we don't want to be on the hand because running cables up and down there is going to be a mess. And really, because this linear guide is pretty damn stiff and is very solidly attached to the aluminium extrusion, whatever angle the extrusion is at, the hand is also going to be at. So we want to mount it onto the extrusion. And I also want it to be kind of near the teensy so that I don't have to be running cables everywhere. I was for a little while thinking about putting it above the hand motor, but I think that draws a bit too much attention to it. I like it being kind of, I don't know, it's not really like a central part of the platform, and I don't want it to have such an obvious spot. I like it being kind of tucked away under here, because it's really only going to be used during that tearing process, and then it's just going to sit there for the rest of the time. So I don't think it deserves, you know, central stage. Yeah, I was thinking of putting it on here on this face, except that's going to get in the way of the cables. So you'll see on this bottom support, in addition to supporting all of the carbon fiber rods, we've also got a little cutout here with some holes. Ooh, I was playing around with the dimensions of this yesterday, and I did not check it thoroughly enough, apparently. You know what, let me just fix that. I can fix it right now. Let me open you, because I know what the feature is. It was this one. No, it wasn't. Well, it was the one beneath it. And let's make that 50 again. Boom, boom, boom. Nothing breaks. Magic. And now we should be good. Yeah, so I've got this cutout and two holes for what are they called? Cable ties, to hold all of the cables that we're running up. This will be the power and the CAN cables, and that's going to be coming. Get out of here. Where's the platform? There it is. That's going to be coming straight up, and if the inclinometer sensor is mounted on this face, that's going to be right in the way. And this is a big fat cable, and it's going to be coming up onto here as well. So it's going to be like sticking out a bit, and I don't really want to have to deal with the inclinometer being in the way. Then we can't really put it on the front face, obviously, because the hand will hit it. So that only really leaves this other side face or the back. And ultimately, I decided on the back. This obviously does raise potential concerns with the string being right here. But to be honest, I'm considering just removing the pin headers on the back here and just changing those for my own cables, because I don't need half of these pins. Half of these pins are just routed to each other, which are routed to ground anyway. There's like 5 of these pins are all ground. Why? But yeah, I'm thinking of just getting rid of those, and that should allow me to bring this even a little bit closer, because right now it's kind of far out. But yeah, in any event, this should be very rigidly attached. Hopefully should be fairly flat. Of course, because these brackets are going to be printed, I don't really expect them to be perfect, especially not perfect to the level of precision that this sensor is. So yeah, we're probably going to have some like tearing of the tearing, where we just like throw a ball straight up and down and then tweak that adjustment until it's like throwing perfectly straight up and down, and then we know that is flat, and so that's what the sensor offset will straighten up, and then we can use that to tear the actual robot. It's gonna be lots of tearing. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with where that is, and that should allow me to connect to the TNC really easily. Yeah, should be good. Yeah, I think that's most of it, to be honest. I've found Onshape quite good. I quite like it. But one thing you will note is that I haven't really been moving the platform around in this assembly. And the reason for that is because Onshape seems a lot less stable for assemblies like this. So I've made 2 or 3 configurations. The one that I'm in right now only lets the thing move up and down, which allows you to do a really cool thing, which I think this one's even cooler. You can animate mates. So I can set this up, and let's do this with a bit faster. It takes a little bit to calculate what it needs to do, but it will animate whatever mate you've set up, and I've set this to just rotate on the spot. I was really trying to get this to rotate in like a cone pattern, but I could not figure out how to set up the mates to do that. So I've just got it rotating about one axis that's like up here in space. But this is kind of cool. I like being able to animate it and like move the camera around and see what's actually going on. So I can really easily see, like, do these joints hit each other, for example? Does the bottom of this part hit any of the legs? Like here we can obviously see no, but what if we change this angle? What if we make this like -30? Like, what happens then? It doesn't like that. Okay, it doesn't like that because I've set in the mate that the limit is 15. But you can play around with it, and yeah, animating them is pretty cool. But the problem is that when I have it completely free, so now the platform has all 6 degrees of freedom, it really doesn't like that. It really has a hard time with figuring out where things should go and is not super happy about this. This is in comparison to SolidWorks, where it is a lot more stable. So I can like grab this, and it takes some time to figure out what it needs to do. It struggles a bit when any of the legs are at their extremes, which I think is probably fair enough because it's actually got to do some figuring out if anything will like hit its limits. But if you're not hitting limits, it's really stable. So like I can really easily, quickly drag this around and it will do more or less what I want. But in Onshape, I've really been having a hard time positioning this in any reasonable way. Yeah, a bit odd. But the animating mates kind of, it's a trade-off. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I've been up to this week, is familiarizing myself with Onshape, getting all of my folders set up the way that I want them to, slowly learning how to actually use assemblies. One thing that I will note is that, so the way that I've structured this overall is I've got all of the main components as their own document. So the base is a document, the leg is a document, the platform is a document, and then Jugglebot v4 is what we've been looking at, is all of these assemblies brought into one. The reason I've done this is because this is how I've been structuring everything in my folders for SolidWorks for a long time. And I just figured I would keep that same layout. But this does make it kind of annoying because these are different documents. It means that when I make an update in one of the documents, I have to save it as a version and then update that version in the main assembly. Whereas, as we've seen before, if everything is in the same document, like everything in this model is in this one document, except for all the bolts and everything. So if I make changes to any of those, they update automatically. And that's really handy. And so I think potentially I don't know. I would be curious to know how this would work if all of this stuff was just in the one Jugglebot v4 document. I think that would make updating things a lot quicker, but I don't know. I'm sure that has other run-on implications. Like I would have a million tabs down the bottom, but to be honest, that's kind of okay because I've got a super ultra wide monitor, so I can probably see like 50 tabs at once. So that's probably not too big of an issue, but yeah. Yeah. So other things, there's a couple other things that I'm curious about. So this is like, I want to know, I'm sure that there are some people out there watching this who use Onshape themselves. And there are a couple of things that I really want to know how to do because I've tried searching for them and I've tried asking Onshape people some of these things, but I haven't really gotten very satisfying answers. So one of them I don't think there's any real solution for, but it really irks me, is that you can't have nested folders in an assembly or in a part sheet or whatever. Like, so here I've got in my platform, I've got all of my things and I've tried to categorize things. So here we've got fasteners. It's like, okay, great. There's 5 folders of just fasteners for different things. And I want them to be in their own separate folder because I don't want to mix up my strut support fasteners with my rear platform node fasteners. That's going to get messy. I want them all to be in their own little folder, but I don't really need 5 separate folders for fasteners. So in SolidWorks, I would have one folder for fasteners. If in SolidWorks, this is a bad example for SolidWorks because I didn't actually model a lot of the fasteners, but in a similar thing, I would have one parent folder and then nested children folders. And that just tidies things up so much, but you can't do that here. You can't, if I am clicking on a folder, I can't make another folder. It's very frustrating. I really wish that they changed that, but maybe in a couple of weeks they will. I mean, we'll see. Yeah, that's just kind of me griping. But one of the biggest thing that I am yet to run into, but I will be running into very soon, is going from CAD to printing. This is obviously something that I do a lot, and I really want a faster process for this. To give you some context, this is how I do it in SolidWorks. I have my assembly open here. Let's say I want to look at this part here. I open this up and I say, okay, cool. This part looks good. It's ready to print. I click my save as 3MF macro that I made, and that saves it into a folder. The way that it saves that doesn't really matter, but it like puts it in the correct spot. And I can really quickly open that up in Prusa Slicer. I can see, yep, cool. This looks good. Like I'm happy with this slicing, but I might realize, oh, actually, hang on. I really wanted to actually change something a little bit. So let me go back to SolidWorks and let's make some changes. Let's just rewind the bar for a bit. And I think, yeah, this is what I want. I click Save as 3MF. Now I don't even need to open the folder anymore. I just go back into Prusa Slicer, right click, reload, and it's right there. So I can go between, especially like if I don't have to use one window for this, like I do when I'm streaming, if I am free to use all of my window space that I have available, this literally takes like 1 second. I just click Save as 3MF and then go over to Prusa Slicer, reload, and then it's right there. And I cannot tell you how much time that has saved me. I probably used the like file save as 3MF thing like 4 or 5 times before I said, no, that is not going to work. I do this too much to do that. In SolidWorks, I can do that save as 3MF macro, and that has worked amazingly. But in Onshape, I don't know how to do this. The only way that I am aware of to save these parts is to go right click, export, Thankfully, thank God, it saves the format that you last chose. In SolidWorks doesn't do that. SolidWorks defaults to, I don't know, whatever the default is, I can't remember. But you have to go down and click 3MF every single time. Thankfully, in Onshape, they do remember that you want the same thing, but you still have to do this export, and then it downloads it. And when you download it, it downloads as like, if you download it a second time, it will download as like blah, 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 1, blah, 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 2, blah, 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 3. So you can't do that like reload thing in Prusa Slicer. And yeah, I really, if anyone uses Onshape and 3D print stuff and has a good workflow for going from the model to the CAD, I would love to know. I am not really looking forward to having to deal with all the back and forth that this is going to entail. And they're like, well, so much right clicking, so much messing around. I really want just like a macro where I just go, and then it will save it. Yes. So if anyone is familiar with Onshape and knows, please tell me. I am very interested to know. Yeah, I think that's most of it. I think we're pretty caught up. So the biggest things now is just for me to print all of this off, which shouldn't take too long. I mean, there's only, I don't know, what, like 10 decently big parts in here. I think it will definitely be done by like early mid next week. And then I can finally start using, John has made a trajectory generator, which I haven't had time, or I haven't checked out yet. Sorry, John. I will soon. Yeah, I'll finally be able to play around with that and actually get some throw and catch testing done with a proper setup. I honestly might, depending on how long these things will take to print, I will probably start playing around with that trajectory generator on Jugglebot as it currently is. But as we've seen, there are lots of issues with how I've mounted the hand right now. And I don't know. I'm anticipating getting not super stellar results out of the current setup. So I'm kind of, I don't know. I guess it would still be familiarizing myself with the generator, and it'll still be useful. But yeah, we'll see. It all depends how timing works out. I also need to have a bit of a play around with the Inclinometer to get familiar with how to use that and integrate it with the Teensy. Yeah. So I think that's about it. I think I've ticked off all my, yeah. So the only other thing I can think of is that there will be no stream next week because I am traveling to go to my brother's birthday, his party, and this is a significant moment for Jugglebot because it was actually at this same equivalent party 3 years ago that I remember having the first kind of proper ideas of how Jugglebot will be structured. I think I had been thinking about it like very vaguely for a little bit before that, but yeah, so like this weekend or next weekend basically marks pretty much exactly 3 years from kind of the start of Jugglebot's proper work being done, which is pretty exciting. And hopefully it's not another 3 years before it's actually working. No, I don't think it will be. I think it will be much, 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 much less than that. But we'll see. It's a very exciting time. Definitely. I'm very keen to get all this stuff printed and actually have it in my hands. Yeah, it's going to be good. Cool. So, if you have any thoughts on any Onshape stuff, if you are checking out the model and you really like it, let me know. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about how I can make collaboration easier. Please let me know. On this note, actually, if you are using Onshape, so you should have this sort of view. God, the white is blinding. You should be able to, I actually haven't used this very much, but you can make a copy somewhere. I probably should have checked this before doing it. There's somewhere in here, there's a way to make a copy, and you can like copy it to your own workspace and do whatever you want with it. What I would like to have is some way for you guys to make copies and do your own thing with it, and then you can ping me in some way and say, hey, I made these changes, I think this is better for XYZ reason, and then you can send me a link to your model, and then I could import that link to my own model. That would be really cool. But I don't know if that's possible with just the free accounts that we would presumably all have. Yeah. I don't know. If there's any way to do that and you're familiar with it, then I would love to know. But yeah, that's about it. I need to start printing, and hopefully this will work beautifully. It will be very clean, very quick, very easy. It's going to be great. We'll see. Cool. All right. Well, I hope you found this interesting. And as always, good luck with everything you're doing. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend. And I will see you in 2 weeks on the Australia time. It will be the 14th of June. And honestly, 2 weeks is a long time. 2 weeks is a long time right now. I think that this will be printed and ready by mid next week, hopefully. So maybe we'll... No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. All right. Good luck. Goodbye.